Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the sanctuary. I'm Mike Robertson, the pastor, and I'm so delighted that you have joined us this morning. Who we got? There's Chloe and Mark and Lisa and Holmes and Hector and Darlene. Good to see all y'all. I know there are others out there. Appreciate you taking some time to be here with us today. I hear it raining outside. Aren't you glad you don't have to get out in the rain anyway? You can sit there in your PJs with your coffee and be comfortable, and we can still have a time of worship together. You know, I told you last week that every single week since we started doing these live streams, every single week there's been some little change or some little tweak or some little adjustment that I've had to deal with on the technical end of stuff. Well, this week I got that in spades. You may have noticed, if you're very observant, I'm not at the church today. This is the first Sunday since the quarantine began that I have not been over at the sanctuary. But we've had an interesting week at the sanctuary. I'm at home, and here's the reason why. We've had some issues at the church this week. First of all, we had a huge water leak underneath the church. How big was it? Well, we got a $5,000 water bill for one. And so that leak has been taken care of. That has been fixed. But now the air conditioning is out. When I went to the church Wednesday, it was 95 degrees inside the church. And so we had AC people come out and look at it. They said, no, it's an electrical problem, and that will be addressed tomorrow. So I decided to do the broadcast from home today instead of trying to do it in the church when it was so hot. It might not have been too bad today with some rain coming down, but this is fine. I'm happy to do it this way. But I want to say a special thank you this week to Brad Birchfield. Brad is brand new on the church council. He just took office the 1st of July, and he's the one that was up at the church almost every day this week dealing with plumbers and air conditioning people and electricians, and he's done such a great job. Brad, thank you so much for jumping right in and making sure everything was done properly. I appreciate you very, very much. All right, we've got some new people. There's Karen and Richard and Cynthia and Brad, Brandy, Glenn. Good to see everybody. If you have within reach something to write on, you might want to take a note about the next thing I'm going to share with you. Coming up, August the 4th. August the 4th is a week from Tuesday, I believe. But August the 4th is going to be the 90th birthday of our friend Lynn Reclus. Most of you know Fred and Lynn. They are now residing at Tech Ridge Oaks Assisted Living Facility in Pflugerville. And that's where we did services for over a year. We did our last one there in February, the first Sunday in February. And then because of quarantine, not only have we not been able to go there and visit with the residents there, even Fred and Lynn's kids have not been able to actually be in contact with them. They've seen them through the door, the front door of the nursing home, but they haven't been able to be in contact with them. Well, Lynn's 90th birthday is coming up. And I think it would be really great if we sent her a lot of cards, small gifts, anything you think of would be great to make her feel special on her birthday when she can't have a lot of people around. So here's the address. Lynn Reclus, 400 East Yeager Lane, apartment number 226, Austin, 78753. I'll leave that up there for a second. And then I will put it back up at the end of the message this morning. So if you don't catch it, I'll put it up there. I'll also share it in the email that goes out for our Wednesday night Zoom chat, which I encourage you to be part of. And then I'll also share it with you next Sunday. You'll still have a couple of days at that point to get a card out. But let's make Lynn feel special. I so miss being able to go chat with them. They are always so fun and enthusiastic and positive about stuff. It's very entertaining to sit and talk to them. And I've not been able to do that since February. I've called them on the phone several times, but I miss being able to see them. So hopefully that will be fixed soon. in the meantime, let's wish her a happy birthday. I appreciate you doing that, taking part in that. One sad note that I want to share with you this morning. I want to ask you to be in prayer for a family that touches our church family. Most of you know Andrew Pottinger, who is also on our church council. Andrew's sister, Stephanie, died yesterday morning from clear cell sarcoma. She was, as you can see, quite young, very vibrant. I remember when they came to visit at our church last year, she was so energetic and enthusiastic, you would never know that she was suffering. And she was very strong in that way. She faced this horrible disease with a lot of courage and never wavering in her faith. And so she passed away yesterday morning. I don't know the funeral arrangements or anything yet. We'll pass that along, and we'll let you know. The church will, of course, reach out to them and send something to that service. But Andrew and the rest of your family, we are praying for you during this time of loss. It's so sad to lose someone so young who was so full of life. So please remember to pray for the Pottinger family during this time. All right, let's get into the message. Something I think a lot about is the subject of dreams. Dreams are very important to us. You can tell how important they are by how many songs there are written about them. Dream, 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 dream. And in dreams, I walk with you. And did you ever see a dream walking? And dream on. There's hundreds of songs about dreams. There are even more books written about dreams and how to interpret your dreams. What do they mean? Dreams are important parts of our lives. Do you remember your dreams? I have found that most people don't. And I try to remember my dreams, but I am only able to do it maybe about 5% of the time. I dream every night. I know that. But when I wake up, I think, okay, what was that dream about? I want to hold on to it. But by the time I get up and start moving around, they usually just slip away. I did start about 1.5 years ago writing down the ones that I could remember. And I got to tell you, they're weird. They're so weird. My dreams are so odd that when Lindsay was a little girl and I would go in to wake her up for school in the morning, she would often say, "Did you have a dream last night?" Because she loved to hear about my dreams because they were just so odd sometimes. Like she really loved the dream I told her about where our little black poodle, one day, his nose fell off. And I used Scotch tape to tape it back into place. She thought that was really interesting. I had another dream that she liked where I was sitting on a stool, just a plain stool, except it had wheels on the bottom of each leg, and it was motorized in some way. And I'm going down a highway just sitting on this stool. Now that sounds like a great way to travel. I would love to do that like a motorcycle, but you don't have to steer it and hold on to handlebars. You can just sit on this stool and cruise down a road. And so in my dream, I'm doing that. I'm going down a country road, and up ahead, I see that the road is just completely blocked with a herd of pigs. And as I get to it, the stool slows down, and I'm kind of inching my way through this herd of pigs. And I look down, and they're just all around my legs as the stool goes through. Now, you dream interpreters, what does that mean? What does that mean? I don't know. Too much bacon? Maybe. I don't know. But dreams are so odd sometimes. And when I'm able to remember them, I think, where did that come from? Now, there are dreams that I've had over and over again. There are dreams, maybe you have a dream like this too. I used to dream when I was a music director, and even many years after I would have this dream, that I'm standing in the pulpit in a church, and I have a hymnal in front of me, and the whole congregation is sitting out there, and I say, all right, turn in your hymnal to number, and I'm flipping through the hymnal. I don't know that song. Ooh, I don't know that song. I don't know that song. And I'm flipping through the hymnal, and there's not a single song in the book that I know. Now, that dream, I know what it means. That's a dream when you feel like I'm not sure if I'm prepared enough for what I'm about to do. I've had dreams like that much of my life. I still have them on a semi-regular basis. Some dreams are comforting. Some dreams are inspiring. Some dreams can be prophetic. They can foretell something that's coming. I don't think my dreams are prophetic. If they were, I would have been touring with the Beach Boys for quite a while now. And if my dreams were really prophesying the future, I would probably be in HEB with not much on right now, walking down the aisles. Not all my dreams, not all your dreams, not all dreams are prophetic. But the Bible has a story of a man whose entire life seemed to be tied up with dreams. The man in the Old Testament that we call Daniel. Now, Daniel, I know you say, oh, I know Daniel's story. You know one part of Daniel's story. You may know the lion's share of Daniel's story, but I'm not going to tell that part. That's why the title of the message today is Daniel Up Until Then. You know the story of the lion's den, but what else was significant about Daniel's life? The answer, a whole bunch of stuff. It was an amazing life. Daniel's a short book, only 12 chapters, a quick read. You really only need to read the first 6. I'll tell you why shortly. But in chapter 1, the country of Judah is overrun by the Babylonian king named Nebuchadnezzar. He conquers Judah and Jerusalem, ransacks the temple. He takes their holy relics back with him to Babylon. But that's not all he takes with him. He takes the brightest and the best of the young men that Judah has to offer. He tells them that they're going to be put into a 3-year training program, and they're going to be prepared to take high-ranking government jobs. Well, that's an interesting technique, right? It's kind of smart to take your enemies and keep them very close and feed them and indoctrinate them and then put them to work, reap the benefits of this 3-year training program. So among the Israelites, among the Jews that are taken by Nebuchadnezzar back to Babylon, are Daniel and Daniel's 3 friends. Daniel's 3 friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And I know you're probably saying, I never heard of those guys. Well, maybe so, maybe no. Because, see, when they got back to Babylon, they all had their names changed. Their names were translated or swapped for Babylonian names. And Daniel's name now became Belteshazzar. Now, that's not much of an improvement over Daniel. So we still know him as Daniel, not Belteshazzar. But Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, their names are changed to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Ah, you do know their story. They're the 3 guys that were tossed into the fiery furnace because they wouldn't bow down to the king, and God saved them from that fiery death. You know that story. But all 4 of these and many other young men are taken to Babylon, and the king says, you're going to eat the royal menu. You're going to eat the same things I eat in the palace. Now, the things that the king ate in the palace was everything he wanted. Everything was first class. The best wine there is, the fattest meat we can find. Everything top notch. It was like a buffet. It was like being on a cruise ship all the time. And the king said, all you guys in this program will eat just like I do. You will reap the benefits of having everything you want to eat. And everybody thought, well, that's a great idea, except for 4 guys, Daniel and his 3 friends. And they said, we're not going to eat that stuff. That doesn't go along with what we believe in. Well, the king's steward, his advisor, comes to Daniel and says, hey, you got to do this. Daniel says, not gonna. The advisor says, do you know what the king will do to me if you don't eat? What if you show up in a couple of weeks and you and your three buddies are all looking skinny and emaciated and have no energy, and all these other guys are looking like wrestlers? You know what the king's going to do? Because Nebuchadnezzar had a bad reputation. He liked to separate people from their heads. And the advisor said, the king will have my head if you don't measure up. Daniel said, let's have a 10-day experiment. You let the rest of them eat whatever they want. They can pig out as much as they want. But me and my three friends, we will only eat vegetables and water. That's right, folks. Daniel is the first vegan in the Bible. Only vegetables and water. And Daniel says, we'll do this for 10 days, and then you see if we should continue or not. So they do it. After 10 days, Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego come in, and they're lined up with the rest of the guys who have been stuffing themselves for 10 days. Who do you think looks better? Daniel and his three friends look lean and buff and energetic, clear-eyed. The other guys are hungover and puffy and bloated. And the advisor says, okay, I guess you can keep doing that. And Daniel gets promoted, actually, to a higher level of authority in the government because he has taken this courageous stand. But I told you this is about dreams. All that happens in chapter 1 of Daniel. Chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar starts having a dream that really disturbs him. He can't sleep, or he keeps getting awakened by this dream. And so he has a whole cabinet full of people who he calls for help. He has every kind of magician and sorcerer and fortune teller and soothsayer, and he calls them all in and lines them up and says, look, I had a dream that I cannot get out of my head, but I cannot sleep until I know what this dream means. So all the magicians and the fortune tellers say, oh, okay, all right. Tell us what you dreamed. And the king says, I can't remember. I can't remember, but unless you can tell me what I dreamed and what it means, I'm going to separate you all from your heads, all of you. And they say to the king, nobody can do that. No human being can do that. That's beyond our power. It would take a God to do that, and they don't hang out with us. I know a God that hangs out with us, but I'm jumping ahead of the story. They say, nobody can do that. And so the king says, fine. You're all going to be executed. And so he signs the order for execution. And Daniel doesn't even know this has gone on. In fact, when a soldier comes to his door and says, I have a warrant to take you out and lop your head off, Daniel says, what? What happened? What is all this? And they tell him that the king has had this dream and he can't remember it, but he wants to know what it means. Daniel says, all right, give me a little bit and then take me to the king. So the king asked Daniel, or Belteshazzar, are you sure you can do this? Are you sure you can not only tell me the dream I had that I don't remember, but interpret it for me? And Daniel said to the king, nobody can do that. No human being alive can do that. No mere human can solve the king's mystery. I don't care who it is. No wise man, no enchanter, no magician, no diviner. And then he says these words. But there is a God in heaven who solves mysteries, and he has solved this one. There is a God in heaven that actually will hang out with us. And so Daniel and his three friends spend some time in prayer saying, God, please reveal this to us that we might be able to save everybody from being executed, that we might pacify the king and make him able to rest again. And so Daniel comes back then to the king and says, what you saw, O king, was this. You saw a gigantic statue standing before you, and it's a terrifying statue, and the head of the statue was pure gold. The chest and the arms of the statue were silver. The belly and the hips were bronze. The legs were iron, and the feet were made of a ceramic iron mixture. And Daniel goes on, and he says, while you were looking at this gigantic statue, a stone cut out of a mountain rolled down the hill and smashed into those ceramic feet, and the whole statue fell to bits. Iron, tile, bronze, silver, and gold, smashed to bits, scattered to the winds. And here's what it means. You are the head. You are that golden head. He said, God has blessed you here. He has allowed you to build this beautiful kingdom, but there's going to be somebody come after you that's not going to be as good. You're gold. The next ruler is just going to be silver. And the next one is going to be bronze. And then the next one's going to be iron and not very good at all. And then there's going to be one that's just clay and is almost worthless. Now, a lot of Bible scholars think he was describing what was going to happen to Babylon. Babylon would be destroyed first by the Medes, then the Persians, then the Greeks, then by the Romans. And these are the different levels of the statue that are symbolized by the different elements that are made up. Daniel says that's what it means. The king thanks Daniel. He rewards him for his wisdom. He promotes him again until Daniel is at governor level, and he really has important things to do in the country because the king trusts him and admires his wisdom. The king says, well, your God is amazing. Maybe I should worship your God. Yeah, maybe you should. Chapter 3 is the story of the furnace. The king who just had this dream about this terrifying statue, you know what he does? He builds a 90-foot statue. So this one is all gold, and he commands everybody at a certain time of day. Everybody has to stand out on their porch or their balcony, and at a certain time of day, everybody has to bow down to this 90-foot statue. And his advisors use this, and they come back and say, 3 of those guys are not bowing down. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're not bowing down to the statue. They refuse to bow down to the statue. And the king gets angry, and he says, we're going to throw them into the furnace. And the Bible says that they built this fire 9 times hotter than they had ever had a fire before. They made the fire so hot that even the guards that threw the men into the fire were killed. And so they throw these 3 guys into the fire, and they just go away and wait. Now, the king had some vantage point from up high where he could look down into the furnace, and he looks down and he says, how many guys did we throw in there? I said, well, 3. He says, I see 4 people moving around in the flames. And this is a very odd thing, but he says, one of them looks like the Son of God. That's a surprise coming in the Old Testament right there. We're not told anything else there. We don't know what that's about, but there was somebody else there, maybe the Holy Spirit in some sort of tangible form. Maybe it was the Son of God. We don't know. But eventually the king says, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, are you all right? And they say, yeah, couldn't be better. And they are brought out of the fiery furnace, and there's not a scorch mark on them. The Bible says they don't even smell like smoke. They're completely untouched by this massive, scorching inferno. And again, the king says, your God is great. I think I will worship him until I forget. Like I do, like you do. I'll worship. I got it this time, God. I'm going to be good this time, until I forgot. That's chapter 3. Chapter 4, the king has another troubling dream. This time he knows who to send for. He calls for Daniel, and Daniel comes in and he listens to the dream that the king tells him. But Daniel is very reluctant to tell the king what it means. And the king says, Daniel, I'm going to reward you no matter what you say. Tell me what it means. And Daniel says, it's not good news. God is no longer pleased with you. And in fact, he's going to humble you in a really dramatic way. He's going to humble you by making you like an animal. He said, you're going to go crazy. You're going to lose your mind. You're going to be grazing out in the fields with the animals on your hands and knees. Your hair is going to grow long and bedraggled until it looks like eagle's feathers. Your nails are going to look more like claws than they are fingernails. You're going to be more animal than human, and it's going to last for 7 years. Well, the king keeps his word, even though he's certainly not pleased by this news. He rewards Daniel, and he thinks, all right. He hears what Daniel has to say, but I don't think he believes it. He continues living his life the way he has been. And a year goes by, and 1 year later, the king is standing on his balcony, and he looks out across his kingdom and says, look at all this. Look at all this. It's all mine. And as he said those words, his brain just blinked out like your computer when the electricity goes out. It just boom, went dark. And just a little while later, he was out grazing on his hands and knees, eating grass like a farm animal. 7 years go by, and the king becomes this figure of ridicule, of horror. See that thing out there? That used to be our king. 7 years later, though, he gets back into power. Now imagine a politician today going completely insane, running around like a cow, eating grass, letting his hair grow down to his knees. Imagine that guy suddenly cleaning up and saying, okay, I'm ready to take office again. The king did it. He took office again. He says, God is all powerful, and he sure knows how to humble a prideful man. Yeah, he sure does. He knows how to humble a prideful man. Well, oh, yeah, here's a picture I forgot to show you of the king grazing. So then in chapter 5, Nebuchadnezzar has passed away. His son, Belshazzar, is now king. This is one of those details that makes me think, yeah, this stuff is really true. No author, no fiction writer would have a character named Belshazzar and a character named Belteshazzar in the same story. And so that's one of those things that made me think, yeah, this really happened. That it's too weird to be fiction. And so Belshazzar is the son of Nebuchadnezzar, but he has not learned any of the lessons that Nebuchadnezzar eventually learned. He is a party animal. He is having a big orgy one night, and it just goes on for hours and hours. And they run out of all the wine glasses and goblets to drink from. And he says, where are those gold, silver vessels we took from the temple in Jerusalem? Bring them in here. He's talking about the sacred vessels that the Israelites used in worship. And they're brought in and they're used as props. They're used as drink glasses for Belshazzar and his partying friends. But then, wow, something weird happens. They're all drinking and laughing and carrying on, and all of a sudden this disembodied hand appears, and it begins to write on the wall in flaming letters. And it writes these words, Mene, mene, tekel upharsin. Well, nobody knows what that means. But they are, of course, terrified by it. You're having a party, and this floating hand appears and writes these strange hieroglyphs on your wall. The party did not last long after that. And the king says, somebody has to tell me what is going on here. Well, Daniel, by this time, is a forgotten man. He's, I guess, retired because Belshazzar doesn't know about him. And nobody can tell the king what this means. But finally, Belshazzar's mother, who was married to Nebuchadnezzar, she says, oh, you know what? There was a guy who used to interpret your father's dreams. I think his name was, and she remembers Daniel. So they sent for Daniel, and the king says, can you interpret this? And Daniel says, yes, I can. He says, what these words mean is that God has weighed you. God has examined you. God has checked how pure you are, like you would check some iron, some gold nuggets for how much worth is in them, how pure they are. He said, God has weighed you to see how pure you are, and the answer is not very. And he said, because of this, God is going to demand from you not just your kingdom, but also your life. Well, again, kind of surprisingly, the king rewards Daniel for his words of wisdom, but that very same night, the king is assassinated, and the kingdom is taken over by a new king. That new king that takes power, that's the king who throws Dan in the den. That's in chapter 6. Those are the first 6 chapters of Daniel. What are the last 6 chapters? Well, they are all taken up with Daniel's very own dreams. He records his own dreams, and they are weird. They're Scotch tape on the dog's nose weird. They're motorized stool through the pig herd weird. They're a rare example of apocalyptic literature in the Old Testament. You read them and it's full of symbols, and we don't know what it means. And I don't even know if Daniel ever knew what it meant. But I think it's great that this man finally got to have some of his own dreams. Because, folks, you can only live so long off of other people's dreams. We do that sometimes. We covet other people's dreams and their gifts, their lives. It's sad that Nebuchadnezzar never even knew what his own dream was, much less how to measure up to it. But we learn some things from the life of Daniel that I think are applicable to each one of us. The first thing about Daniel is this: he was ready. He was ready when the word went out, can anybody interpret this dream? Daniel said, yes, I can. He didn't say, well, I'm going to have to go take a course in this. It's going to take me 6 months to get my certificate. No, he said, I'm ready, because he had a gift that God had given him. He had worked on that gift. He knew that he could do what was asked of him to do. And so lesson number 1 is he was always ready. Do you live your life in a state of readiness, or do you live your life in a state of, oh no, what's going to happen now? If you're a follower of Jesus, you should be able to face anything with assurance that God is going to help you through it. But you need to be ready to use the gifts that are hardwired into you by your Creator. The second thing about Daniel is you're supposed to use your gift as best as you can. You use it to the limits of your ability. And that leads into the third thing. When you reach the end of your rope, when you've done all you can with your gifts, that is when God steps in. When you can't, that's when God shows up. You know, one of the first songs we learned right after Happy Birthday and Jesus Loves Me is a song about rowing a boat. About rowing a boat gently down a stream. And how are we supposed to row? Merrily, merrily, merrily. Because why? Life is but a dream. And you may say, my life is no dream. My life is more like a nightmare. Well, what does my dream mean? How do I get through? What am I supposed to do with my life? What are my abilities? We have so many questions that we cannot find the answers to ourselves. But in the words of Daniel, but there is a God in heaven who can solve all your problems and answer all your questions. Ask him what his plan is for you. Work at it. Give yourself to him, and you will be able to make your way merrily, merrily, merrily down the stream of life. I love you all. Thank you for being here this morning. We'll see you next time. God bless you.